cars and I'm with the song about some paper. It's 19. 4 cars side by side in a wild thrill ride with the roar of the engines leaving all doubts behind. As the wheels spin on, chasing dreams we can't hide. That's a car life where legends never die.
What do you say about that, Blake?
Man, we are moving on up, buddy. I'm more impressed by the day.
That's right. You better be.
Right.
Better be.
You worry.
Yep. Episode 31. Here we are, guys. We're all alive somehow. We had a very interesting weekend at Darlington, so to speak. We'll get into it when we get to talking about the cup race. I wasn't there for the truck race. You two weren't there for the truck race, but it was probably we should have been there for the truck race, and we should have been there for the cup race.
What? At least good times were had.
That's right.
Except for little shrapnel.
We'll get talking about that in a little bit. Alrighty, boys. Well, we got just a little tiny news segment to start off this week, so nothing too crazy. One thing that I've been hearing about is that it's potentially possible that Corey Heim may not have a potential ride in Cup for next year, for 2026. They are thinking maybe 2027. So when I would say when Riley Herbst steals up with that third car, if that organization is still a thing, in 2 years. We don't know what's going on at this point. And it's interesting because you expect Heim to be the top prospect for Toyota, obviously, but there's also some animosity at the JGR camp for him because him and Ty Gibbs didn't quite get along in ARCA, for what I understand, back when they were both down there.
Shocker.
And that seems to be kind of the hold up. So Brent Cruz is probably your guy that you're looking for JGR moving up. That's probably their most highest ceiling person that they have currently. Him or Zillich. They're pretty neck to neck, but obviously Zillich has struggled in Xfinity. Yeah, I thought that was interesting, so I wanted to throw that in there and get y'all's thoughts about that. Obviously, we feel like Heim's just in a class of his own, so it feels almost redundant not to move him up at least a division next year, much less throw him back in the truck series.
I mean, I know the rest of the truck series would enjoy it if he was gone, because, he's at 1 away from tying Biffle, 2 away from breaking the record.
I thought the record was 9 for some reason, so I thought he had 8 wins, but that might be on me.
I may be wrong. I'm pretty sure the record's 8, and
I will look while you...
Yeah. But anyway, he's close to it, and, he's just absolutely dominated most of the season, and then you also look at, the races he could have won. How many races did he lose that he dominated the entirety of and lost towards the end? I think he's ready for Cup. I'd say he's almost more ready than Zilisch, in my opinion, for Cup. He's just been dominating in the truck series, and just excited to see him get to the Cup finally. But man, I hope we don't have to wait another year. But until 2311 gets their crap together, I guess we got to wait.
Yep, that's 8 wins for the season. Just checked. So 9 is the record. Go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, you would think Beanbag could have a easy in for a full-time ride just based on talent. It would be Heim, right? Sadly, with, I guess, some of the silly season moves and rumors and stuff like that, the fact that there's even a potential that this is going to be the case shows that there's something off in the sport, right? And I hope, and I don't think it will, just being realistic, I hope it doesn't end up for Heim being a situation where funding is an issue and he gets like the Brett Moffitt treatment, right? Because you look at somebody like Brett Moffitt, fantastic race car driver, truck series champion, just can't buy a ride because he doesn't bring the sponsorship, right? So I hope that I hope he'll be able to accumulate enough sponsorship. And remind me, why can't you just stay another year at Tricon?
It's not that he can't, but obviously Honeycutt's pretty much rumored to be going that way. So there's one less truck now on the fleet. So that either means they're getting rid of someone that's already there. That's kind of what we got going on over there.
Well, I hope that, I mean, to state the obvious, I think there's one Tricon driver you could probably boot, right? I know she probably brings a lot of money to the team, but when it comes based off just sheer performance, you almost wonder with Safe Light and winning races. I mean, obviously that's going to bring in more money than just a Celsius or any kind of other sponsorship coming in. So I think when you look at competition wise, I think Tricon has a pretty clear path, right? I mean, I think I mean, you don't really even have to necessarily get rid of Tony Bridinger. I wouldn't think you could just, instead of having that all-star truck, just make Heim the all-star truck, if you will. I mean, it's going to be that anyway. So hopefully he'll have a full-time ride somewhere. I was listening to DBC, and Tommy Baldwin seemed to indicate that he would be on a full-time ride somewhere. Hopefully that's good news. Hopefully he's accurate on that, because it would sure be a shame if he didn't.
It's kind of crazy. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about this. I know he's obviously Toyota pipeline driver, 2311 developmental driver, but when does it get to the point where it's just like, screw this Toyota thing? I'm gonna go drive for Junior, given there's a open car for next year for the Xfinity Series. And that I know that's probably there's some contract obligations and stuff that goes into that, but as a driver, I would say it'd be irritating to be sitting there pretty much blocked from the most prestigious Toyota organization being JGR all over, some redundant feelings for someone that's not even won a cup race yet in a couple years of racing, top equipment.
Who would that be, Cole?
Nah, man, just look at the JGR roster and look at the person that hasn't won a race yet.
Definitely Chase Briscoe, that's for sure.
Does this person have a silver spoon?
Maybe, perhaps. I will not say yay or nay to this, but there's been some accusations thrown to the silver spoon of this particular driver.
I think it's fair to say nepotism might be involved.
Does he share the last name with somebody? That is.
I hear he's
maybe on the building, perhaps.
Maybe.
I hear a lot of monster money.
Riley Herbst, obviously, we're talking about Riley Herbst, your monster money.
I think on a serious note, I think if you're Heim, obviously, if you can land a 23 spot, it's going to be pretty much all but guaranteed to you come 2027. And honestly, if they can stay around, I don't know why you wouldn't just do what you need to put Heim in that 35 car, right? But say in a world that 2311 is no longer in existence, do you say screw Toyota at that point and just do what you need to find a cup ride? Or maybe if somebody like a Legacy gets a third charter, try to get in with them if you're Toyota? Or I don't know. That's got to be tough on the logistical end.
I mean, screw loyalty at that point. You're a pipeline driver and the pipeline disappears. Go where your opportunity is at.
Just look at it like this, right? You have a Reddick that they've been talking about, like this contract clause for Reddick the entire time. If the 2311 goes up to shambles, he has the ability to go to different organizations. I wonder if Corey Heim has the same thing. I feel like he should. If he doesn't, I would be like, call my lawyer up and be like, yo, man, we got to talk about this real quick. We need to figure out something in regards to this. But maybe it's just another thing of just, you know what, being patient, wait another year. Absolutely just smack everybody in the truck series for another year. Though I feel like lane rigs will probably be a lot more competitive next year. Front row's really starting to get their wheels going in that direction for the truck series. So it might be a more competitive year.
Well, and I think, too, you don't want to get out of the Toyota pipeline because they are the best when it comes to developing drivers. I think you take somebody like a Haley Deegan, who is winning some K&N West races, K&N lower series races with Toyota, but she gets out of that program and rushes her way up, right? Not really any results. And so you kind of hate to see drivers get out of Toyota because it do a great job at developing drivers. But at what point is it the right time to move on if it doesn't work, like you said, Austin?
Yep, that's a good point. And then next little bit, we'll conclude with this since we're already talking about 2311. Towards, I think it was Thursday or Wednesday, they released a whole bunch of spicy text messages between not just the NASCAR official organization, but also Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin. I mean, pretty much all of the executives of both teams of Front Row in them, and just a big old mess. And now everybody's like, all this dirty laundry's aired everywhere. So
Lots of
they're really, yes, very much more than obviously we would ever say on this podcast. But it's just absurd, like the stuff that was said. But that's also, I mean, if you're going to decide to do a lawsuit and stuff like this, you know that you're going to have to give over these records and stuff. You knew this was going to happen. Now, did you know if it was going to be public necessarily knowledge? No, but when the judge deems that all the redacted information needs to be made public in order to be able to do the trial whatever way. I'm no logistical lawyer expert by any means, but wow, it was just a lot. I remember sending a message to the group chat with like all these details, and Austin's like, I don't even know what this says. Like, it's so much stuff. It's just, it was absolutely absurd. So, yeah, y'all take that away if you have any additional things that you guys want to talk about with that. I thought I would just open the air.
I mean, I saw some guy on Twitter. He was like, I'm siding with the group that isn't wishing death on another person. Because there was, one guy involved on the 2311 front row side was like, can't wait for like the France family to die out, or to lose their control over NASCAR. And I was like, eee, like that's spicy. And then lots of F words and other stuff thrown in there. So yeah, it's really ugly. And I think Blake in our group chat kind of hit the nail on the head, talking about how this just makes our sport look terrible. Like it just makes it look terrible, and it's bringing. They say any publicity is good publicity. Not here. This is not good publicity for the sport. We're, and I'm not here to say one side is right or wrong, because obviously we don't have all the facts. We do understand that NASCAR has been a little more shady in their dealings than they probably should be. And for the most part, Front Row and 2311, they're trying to make the sport more viable for other teams. They're trying to get a larger cut from NASCAR to pay their people more, to pay their teams more. But when you see texts like that, like the one wishing death upon, the France family, that kind of undermines your cause. It's like protesters that are protesting a cause going out and inconveniencing people, just making an absolute fool of themselves. That undermines the cause of which they're protesting. You lose people to your cause by doing that, and I'm afraid that when some of the stuff gets revealed, it won't matter whether NASCAR is in the right or wrong, because they're going to have people undermining, they're undermining their cause by how they're going about it. And I know people already, some have already sided with NASCAR. They hope that 2311 goes out of business. They hope Front Row goes out of business, because that they're blaming them for bringing bad publicity on the sport instead of keeping things as they were, not rocking the boat.
Yeah, it's just a dang shame. I mean, because you've got text messages like that, and to be fair, you've got a lot of horrible text messages coming from top executives in NASCAR too. It, quite frankly, it sounds like a middle school football fight with the kind of language they're using with each other, and the appropriateness of the situation just seems like a great lack of maturity, a lack of awareness. Horrible publicity. You've got so many good things going in the sport right now. Like, I mean, heck, we're in the playoffs, right? I mean, it'd be nice to focus all in on just playoffs. Who's going to make it? Who's not? It's kind of tough to talk about without just kind of going on a rampage, right? But I hope they can just settle for the better of everybody. And because NASCAR, like I get it, I mean, in their eyes, 2311 and front row hadn't been around as long as what they are. But also, too, when Michael Jordan came into the sport, you got some people that kind of was like the gateway to more publicity to a broader fan audience. And it's like, you really want, like, are you really okay with them just going out of business so you can win? Like, that doesn't seem right. In front row, they obviously they haven't always been the best team in the Cup garage. The owner, he was a chain Taco Bell and Long John Silver's owner in Eastern Tennessee, and he wanted to get into NASCAR, and he's put a lot of money into competing and building a really credible race team. Bob Jenkins, and I remember after David Reagan won at Talladega in 2013, he said, "I just want to be known as the guy who did the most with the least." I don't think you want to treat a guy like that bad who's putting a lot in, just trying to grind week in, week out, making stuff better. So I think everybody kind of lost this week because, you don't really want to side with people dying, but also they do bring up a good point. You take a team like Firm Churro Racing back in 2017, wins the championship. They got to go out of business after 2018 because they don't have the funding to keep going. And they're a championship caliber team, right? So you see that the model's broken. Yeah, I just hope they can get it figured out before December 1st. That way it can be a relatively peaceful off season. And I think the sport would be hindered drastically if these teams went away.
It's gotten to the point now where it's gotten so dirty. It's like I don't see them really settling at this point. Sad as it to say, it's like, well, it's already done. Apparently, these two lawyers for both sides don't like each other. They've gone against each other multiple times. So it's like you partner that with all this crap that's going on. You got a whole bunch of people saying, "Hey, I'm not going to quit," and they're just going to destroy a portion of the sport just because they want to be competitive in out of the field, so to speak. Obviously, we're on racetracks here, but that's just sad. It really is.
Yeah, I want to bring that up too. That's a good point about the lawyers. So I mean, it's like each side hates each other. The lawyers hate each other, and it's like, I actually hadn't thought about it that way before, Cole. But I think you're right. I think there's so much hatred in three realms now. I think it's just we'll see how it goes.
In majority, now of course, you're going to have your fans that are like for and against. So they're dividing the fans at the same point. But there's a whole bunch of us fans in the middle that just enjoy the sport of NASCAR. It's like the step family of two relatives that are just constantly arguing, and you're just like, can you guys just make up and just try to find some middle ground, please, because you're hurting the family.
It's like, Mom and Dad, stop fighting.
It's crazy. It's hard to like Blake said, it's a distraction when you have some of the best racing on product majority of the time during the playoffs. Darlington was not the most exciting race that we've ever have seen in the playoffs at Darlington at all, but it's still a phenomenal racetrack. There's great story elements and stuff, but when you're going into the week, and even if the broadcast doesn't talk about it, because they do a good job trying to not really talk about that too much. They may mention it once or twice, but obviously they're trying to, since NASCAR's kind of funding a lot of the money to put it on that particular network, they're like, hey, just don't mention this stuff that's a little bit off the grid. As fans, it's still, we see that 45 and we see that 23 going around, and obviously we see the performance that they have on the racetrack, and that's not discrediting obviously the 4 and all the front row, the 38, the 34 over there. They've had really good runs this year, and we see some really cool paint schemes like with the Grillo's pickle car. Love that scheme. the hot one and the normal one, but we see those cars going around on the track, and we're like, that it's sad to be like, they're running really good, but they still got that lawsuit going on. They still got all that other mess where we might not see those cars next year on the track in the same capacity. So another mention I'll do, and then we'll move on to the truck race because we got a lot to talk about this week, is they actually ruled, NASCAR actually made a good decision, said, hey, we're not going to sell the SHR charters till this court case is done. Grateful for that. Very much worthy of, a little... Great job, NASCAR. You made one good call as an organization. Hopefully you can make a couple more here in the next coming months. But obviously, we've not been huge fans of Tyler Reddick throughout his career. We think he's a phenomenal driver, but we're not like, we want Reddick win every single race. Same thing with Bubba. We like Noah G because Noah G is a great personality for the sport, but we're still not like, we want Noah G to win every single week. We still have our favorite preferable drivers. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's just annoying, I guess, because we're not sitting here being like 2311 lovers. We're not buying all their merchandise and wearing it to the racetrack and supporting them, but we're just like the casual fan that's like, this is screwed up. That's all you can say.
Well, and like, you take a look at Reddick, obviously deserves a cup ride. I think here in the last, honestly, I think this year has helped solidify Bubba's role in the Cup Series. I think after some of the speed he's had the last few months, I think you could argue, yeah, he definitely deserves to be in a top quality ride. I mean, I think he's making he's making a lot of good moves in that 23 car, right? And then, yeah, I mean, you look at Gregson, I think he's probably a lot like how the 1990s, 1980s, 1970s drivers were, just a typical guy, loves to just go out into the infield, talk to fans, will go sit in the grandstands. Yeah, and you got the other guys who are super good too, but you, I mean, you're right. You look at their car and you realize they might not be here next year. I mean, Reddick, I think, is probably the safest, obviously, out of all of them. But it kind of makes you wonder, dang, they're on borrowed time. It kind of feels like this goes south for them.
Alrighty. Well, we're going to move on to the truck series at Darlington. A little recap here. If you watched majority of the race, it definitely didn't look like Corey Heim was going to win this race. He was definitely in the running for sure. He's always in the running. I mean, if he's on the track, he's definitely going to be in the top 5 for sure most of the time, unless something outrageous happens. Lane Riggs looked like the truck to beat, which was not necessarily surprising because, I mean, it kind of fits into his wheelhouse. Tire management, old school kind of track and feel. It's not a short track, obviously, and everybody be like, well, Lane Riggs kind of known for the short track circuit, but he's shown throughout the year it's not just like the short track feel for him. He's been really good on the mile and a half. I mean, front row in general, it's been really good. Chandler Smith obviously hasn't had a ton of wins in the column this year, neither has Riggs because Heim's been winning a lot of the races. He's won 8 of the races this year. But it definitely seemed like Riggs probably going to have it, but the one thing that he didn't do that Heim did a little bit better was able to manage his truck just a little bit longer where he wasn't pushing it so hard and rough. So I'm going to throw it to Austin first because I know where you're going to go with this, Blake. Austin, what was your honest, thoughts and interpretations of the truck race?
Well, I mean, Riggs obviously looked like he was the truck to beat. Had that late miscue towards the end part of the race, and then Heim was like a vulture waiting on an animal to die. Was right there ready to take it, and took the win. And so once again, Heim is just absolutely dominating the truck series. For once, he won a race where he didn't dominate. He kind of stole it, if you will. I guess he stole back one of the races that was stolen from him over the past part of the year. But I mean, I think that's the headline really right there. Riggs led 71 laps, and Heim only led the last 19. But I think this race showed if anything, that it's going to be really hard to beat Heim as we get further into this playoff series for the trucks. I mean, he's looking hard to beat. I think the championship is his to lose, because as long as he runs well, I don't see why he wouldn't get in. Yeah, I mean, not much really to say, honestly. Good run for Hemrick and Enfinger, finishing the top 3. Majeski getting the top 5. He needed that as well. Man, not much else to say.
That 19 car, or that 19 truck, looked really slick this weekend. That throwback scheme, it looked really nice. So I was very appreciative of that as a throwback scheme fan. I know some people hate it where it's not on throwback weekend.
Yeah, I just want to apologize, fellow Lane Riggs fans. I think I jinxed him. I texted Cole. I said, "Man, it's a great day to be a Lane Riggs fan." And daggum, if it wasn't 5 minutes right after that, is when his truck just goes to crap, and Heim just starts winning. I'm like, and Cole responded to me. He's like, "Yeah, not anymore. It ain't." So, just want to give that public apology. Sorry about that. Won't happen again. No, he drove a super good race. Piggyback off what y'all said. I mean, Lane does super well at the tire conservation tracks. You look at IRP, first ever win was at the Milwaukee Mile. Definitely not known for the smooth asphalt there, right? And so, just he's continuing to solidify that he is a great prospect that's coming up in the sport. Obviously, Heim's the number 1 prospect for the Cup Series, right? But it wouldn't surprise me if Lane continues on this trajectory, if we're not talking about him being like this, like a Heim-like figure here in maybe a year or 2. It depends on where Heim's at, right? But I could easily see a world where Lane Riggs has 5 to 6 truck wins per year and just continuing to move on up. And so I'm super glad about that. Looked a little rough last year as a Lane Riggs fan. You're like, he's in a front row truck, didn't make the playoffs, but then won a few of the last races. Like, all right, looks like some potential, and he's definitely continued that into this year. So happy about his trajectory. And selfishly, as a Riggs fan, kind of excited that there's a 1 race playoff at the at the end, right? Because I think Riggs could obviously win it if, say, Heim has some trouble at Phoenix, right? I think Phoenix could be a place where Riggs could capitalize on that. Does he deserve to win the championship if that happens? No. But with the way it's set up, I'm kind of optimistic in the back of my head. I'm like, man, this could be a championship here.
Always can be. That's the beauty and some people, the hatred of the playoff system that we have now is you can have someone that just absolutely kills the entire season and they have 1 bad race, especially if that last playoff race, and then boom, Heim hits the wall, lap 50, and
Yeah.
you're going to have someone new competing for the championship. It's crazy to think about, but it's a potentially thing happen. I mean, obviously we talked about, was it last year or the year before? I think it was the year before when Hocevar had that incident during the last race. Well, Riggs had the bad pit stop at the end of the second stage, lost the lead there, but was able to climb back up. And then with, what was it, like 18, 19 laps to go when that truck just completely gave out and then the tire popped on it.
Yeah, it was about that time. And I get it, trying to make your way up through the field, but at a place like Darlington, sometimes you got to go a little slower to go faster with the tire conservation. But I get it. You lost your lead trying to get back up. One thing I appreciate about Lane is he's always going to try to give it 110%, even if it's at some of the wrong times, right? I think you can appreciate that as as a race fan from him.
And it's also the result of the still body cars compared to what we have on, these Cup cars, for instance, and Xfinity cars. They can take a little bit more of a hit, but, some of these trucks, you mess it up early on, it's done. And that's kind of what happened to Chandler Smith very early in the race. His teammate, he got into the wall and it pretty much destroyed his day. Chandler Smith actually comes from the Xfinity Series last year, essentially having to relearn this about the still body stuff. If you hit something a little bit too hard, it can really mess your day up. Thankfully, it really didn't hurt him too much in the playoff outlook here, because you got Honeycutt. Obviously, he had a wreck towards the end of the race. It was an optimal time for Riggs to have the tire issue, because Honeycutt brought out a caution about at the same time. If Honeycutt didn't have that issue with, I think it was the 77 truck, he probably would have went a lap down at least, and would have had to fight back to get a decent finish. I think he ended up finishing 17th, so that kind of stopped the bleeding a little bit for the playoffs. He's pretty firm in points, so he had a little bit of a buffer anyways. He gets to keep some of that. So, but playoff picture, we're looking at the cut line. Smith is 2 points down, and Honeycutt's 7 points down, and then Garcia is only 2 points up. So, I mean, it's anybody's oyster there on the bottom, and Raja is only 4 points up for 7th. So, you just got to have equally bad day for those two, or have a phenomenal day for Honeycutt and Smith, and they're right back at it. So, that's going to be
When's the cutoff race for the trucks?
Hampshire is the cutoff race.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Darlington was the first official playoff race, then Bristol next week, and then Loudon after that.
Yeah, because they skipped the 1 week. It makes sense.
That's a good chance for somebody like a Chandler Smith to make up some points. And honestly, Honeycutt as well. I think he could do well there.
I mean, Chandler Smith won the spring race, so
definitely should be a really good battle there on that 11 trucks for sure.
Yeah, and Garcia has not been the most consistent driver, so I could easily see him, one of the two jumping over him. He have a bad day, and I hate to say that about Jake Garcia. He's just got a couple years of development, honestly, on his plate for him to be getting to the place like a Majetski or Ben Rose, for instance. But yeah, I mean, Honeycutt, if you remember earlier in the year at Martinsville, he did fantastic at that racetrack. So short tracks are kind of in the game, so to speak, but obviously it's a different team too. It's not for Nice anymore. It's for Stuart Friesen's team. So I'm sure there's some growing pains and things that they're trying to learn week in to week out. But it's going to be phenomenal to watch them at Bristol, and then once they get to Loudon, New Hampshire, which is another fantastic track. It'll be very interesting to see, that bottom line. But you got people like Riggs that's up 38, Hamrick 33, and Fingers up by 30. They got a little bit of a buffer, but, that, so to speak, something bad happens to them 2 weeks in a row, that's a potential way to get kicked out of the playoffs even up there. So it would take a tremendous amount of things to happen. Just got to keep that in consideration. So alrighty, we're going to move on to Portland, which was another interesting race. Yeah, of course, Zilisch won the race. What a shocker. Xfinity road course expert over there. But there was a lot of stuff that happened in this race. It's a different perspective on the road courses. It's not these elevated road courses that you see. It's just a flat track, and it's got some beautiful scenery. You got the river that's cut in the middle of it as you go through the turn. Or not through the turn, through that little straightaway. It's a beautiful track.
Yeah, I'll echo the positive sentiments you said. To me, it seemed like a pretty decent race. To be a standalone, I mean, I guess it's not technically a standalone because the ARCA series was out there, but still a standalone race in the top 3 series, right? It looked like it was a pretty decent crowd there for that. I saw a few campers. It's like, man, if they're willing to come camp for a few days for an Xfinity race and the Cup guys ain't even in town, it shows you got some dedicated fans out that way. So shout out to them. thoroughly enjoy this track because, like you said, it's flat. It does offer that different perspective. And one thing that I like about this road course, it really looks like that if you push your car too far in a lot of the areas, there's a price to pay because you are going to be into some grass, right? Now, there's one specific area, if you push your car too far, it's an advantage. But outside of that, it looks like it is a fantastic road course. I remember like SVG there last year, and then I think when um AJ Allmendinger and a few of them raced there a couple years ago, it was a pretty good race. And I think it's in the area of the United States too, where, to be quite honest with you, there's not a huge NASCAR presence at all. I mean, I guess you've got Sonoma, but I don't know if you could consider that the Pacific Northwest, right? I think that's probably more just out west. But for something that we know for sure is in the Pacific Northwest, there's just not a lot of places for NASCAR fans to go to see a race out there. And so I would personally like to see Cup go out there and try it just for a year or two. I think personally it would be really cool to see Sonoma and then Portland back to back. They're already doing kind of like what you said before, some of the road courses back to back anyway. And so the hauler drivers, it's not like they'd have to go to Sonoma, then go all the way back to North Carolina just to go all the way back to Portland, right? You could just do a 2-for-1 out there and hit an area of the United States that you could grow your brand in. And so I loved what I saw in the highlights. But I think obviously the elephant in the room is kind of the legitimacy of the win, right? I think that might be fair. You look at Zilisch on that last restart. Obviously has a wheel hop. Honestly, kudos to him for knowing the rules and using that to his advantage. Don't hate the player, hate the game when it comes to that, because he did what he needed to. He served his penalty well, and it's not his fault the penalty worked for his advantage, right? I think that's more of a track preparation thing that I don't know if it's on NASCAR or the track at that point, but you would think NASCAR could implement at least a stop and go, because really if you're having to cut the course at any point, it should not be an advantage to just do a little quick S and then shoot out and head into turns 3 and 4 the way that they do. And so I think they could probably do a better job of that. I think if you did a stop and go and then if you wanted to add the going through those signs or whatever you could, or I think a stop and go would probably just be sufficient, right? Whichever blame that needs to go on, I think they could do a better job in that area and just being preventive, right? That last restart, I think it was Carson Quaffle who was the first one that legitimately raced the actual track and came around. I mean, now I know that Austin Hill, Sawallich, all them, I mean, they kind of got forced down by Nick Sanchez, right? Poor Allgaier. The track rules and the track limits are the track limits, right? And so I think you could probably make an argument that in a purist racing world, Quaffle probably should have been your winner, but that's also not what happened. And Zilisch is the winner, and he deserved to be the winner when you look at the whole day, right? But I was kind of hoping when I was watching the highlights that before that last caution, I was kind of hoping it would stay green between Austin Hill and Zilisch, because I think you were going to be set up for a fantastic finish right there. Because you've got Zilisch, who's a great road racer, and then you've got Austin Hill, who's going to do what he can to protect that lead and do any means necessary to make sure that he can win. Right, so I thought it was going to be the perfect combination. And then when I saw a caution came out, I'm like, dang it. And so I like I said, couldn't really watch the whole race, but from what I saw in the highlights, especially in the latter stage, it looked like a pretty good race.
Yeah, for sure. Austin, you want to take it away, talk about kind of your perspective on everything? I know that you probably got some interesting things you want to talk about.
I think it's really interesting. The top 4 finishers were rookies. I thought that was really impressive. It wasn't veteran. Obviously Zilisch winning the race, and then Zilisch, Sanchez, and Ekes rounded out the top 4 there. And that was Zilisch's best career finish, too, in the Xfinity Series. So, which I think, gosh, he needed it. I mean, the year that he has had in the Xfinity Series has been nothing short of downright miserable some days. But, I think that's an interesting highlight to take away from it. And then the continued dominance of JRM on road courses. The JRM has won every single road course this year with 3 different drivers. Zilisch, SVG, and then Suarez at Mexico City. So they have absolutely dominated the road courses, and they've dominated the season too. I mean, that's how many wins this year that JRM has had. Junior has been putting together an absolute dynasty here. But those are kind of the things that came to my mind, just that aspect. And they've also claimed every pole at these road course tracks as well. But yeah, just love to see Zilisch win. He's a guy I don't mind seeing in victory lane week in, week out. He's a good kid, and obviously the storyline was there, right? His first full race back after breaking his collarbone, and then you had the funny moment of him getting out of the car, very gingerly
Through the roof hatch.
through the roof hatch. Yeah, not risking the window net this time. Just really happy for him to get a win and bounce back after a really embarrassing moment in front of national television. So it was an interesting race, interesting finish, but it had some really interesting outcomes as well. And then with the playoff, that extends Zilich's lead on Allgaier, and
I mean, Zilisch even practiced the A-frame down there during practice to make sure that he could run it. I find it really hard to be like, Zilisch cheated the system, blah, 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 like a whole bunch of people are. When NASCAR literally seen him running it in practice and could see the speed that he could probably carry off, they should have been like, you know what, maybe we should make this an S or something. Something that's more, you have to navigate where it's not just a literal A. Another thing, I know you mentioned Swalich, and me and you've talked about how we thought that it might be his race to win. We thought this would be a road course that he would, obviously he did really good during the ARCA race. I believe he won that. And then coming into the Xfinity race, we're like, okay, he's got good potential, but he's not making friends out there. I can go ahead and tell you that. He was the first time Zilisch went through the A-frames during the race, it was because Swalich took it in way too deep and forced everybody to kind of check up. And Swalich basically door slammed. He door slammed Zilisch, so Zilisch had to go through the A-frames, and that's how Austin Hill was able to get the lead on that restart. And then that's when Zilisch was trying to chase down Austin Hill, and me and Blake just talked about how he wished that caution wouldn't have come out. Obviously, he kind of had to. There was 3 different cars wrecked on the track at different places. And I'll tell you one person that definitely wishes that caution didn't come out, and that's Justin Allgaier, because that he was running third, I believe, at that portion of the race, and it was looking like he was going to finish right there, third, fourth. He had a really good overall car. And that last restart, obviously, he got sent up into the grass, and he lost a lot of points from that restart. That put him more in a deficit for that regular season. the Xfinity Series, as odd as it is to say, it's still not in their playoffs yet. They still have one more race before they make it to their playoffs, and we're still talking about the regular season championship. And they talked about how much it meant for Cup guys. Well, if Zilisch can win this, think about the buffer this man's going to have. It's going to be like a Heim buffer plus. It's going to be absurd because all the stage wins and stuff that he's accumulated over the year, it's outrageous. So yeah, it was a very interesting finish. Maybe an S turn, because the bad thing about stop and goes, man, is especially when it's on that last lap, how many of your drivers are actually going to do the stop and go? They were forced off the track. Then you have that whole stipulation, like who was forced off the track, who wasn't forced off the track. And when it comes to a last restart, and you got someone that, I'm not saying anything about Nick Sanchez. I believe that he needs to be aggressive. He needs more points to build up his regular season where he ends up. But it feels like a stop and go probably wouldn't be the best thing for the last lap. Maybe it would work for, your restarts and stuff on the first two stages and any other complications. But when it comes to that last lap, you really think that someone that's going to be leading the corner is going to stop and go when they're forced off the track, and then you want force NASCAR to make a call there. It gets even more muddy.
Yeah.
So,
You look at like what Ross did at the Indy Road Course a few years ago. I don't know. I don't know how these two things are different, to be quite honest. And I know it looked like back at the Indy Road Course, it looked like Ross was like, you know what, I ain't even going to try to make the corner. With Zilisch, I mean, I think you could tell he tried to make the corner, but man, he was wheel hopping so much. I mean, no way he was going to. So, but also too, Ross did that to avoid a wreck. It looks like it all evened out. I would like to kind of see what was, or if they're going to do anything about that in the future. Because if I'm Ross Chastain, I'm thinking like, so they're not calling that now, right? In case that ever comes up at, like, I don't know, the Roval. So we'll see. But I would definitely like to know what the rationale was on what's okay, what's not, for sure.
you remember last year at the Roval, they were micromanaging everything. They were throwing penalties left and right. Maybe it's just a track thing. Maybe it's just where they didn't really have a lot of control. Roval weekend, they have, majority of the cars there at one time. So it's not a standalone race like this one was, where you had non-competitive pit stops, which me and Blake talked about earlier. That's really fun and interesting because your strong teams that have really good pit crews are not able to just essentially jump people for bad performance on the track like you see sometimes during these ovals. Pit road, you can gain a lot of spots just by being, consistently and good, where, your other teams may have a whole bunch of rental people essentially together from different teams that don't work as well as compared to like a JGR crew that's like just a step down of the Cup guys. So it was definitely interesting to see for that. But yeah, man, there's a lot going on here, and you can be like, well, this, that. You can view different perspectives of the race itself and believe that it should be an A-frame, stop and go. But at the end, was it not just an exciting race at the end? I mean, even that last, like we talk about that restart, but the restart before, Zilisch had a fender rub on the back. That back of that car was destroyed. And he was smoking the whole entire time. And he was chasing down Austin Hill with that damage. It was absolutely absurd. And he pushed it so hard that it actually just equaled out where it wasn't rubbing the tire anymore. So it just kind of cleared itself.
Well, and imagine too, with the composite bodies that the Cup cars have, imagine how much they'd be able to just beat the snot out of each other going there into turn one. And I mean, think about all the damaged race cars you have running around that place. I think it could be pretty fun. I hope NASCAR will consider going out there for a Cup race just to try it, right? Give it a 2-year stint, and just see how it goes.
I'm all for taking the roval off and putting something else in there, so we can do that. No problem. Moose, like as a fan, I love that racetrack. It shows some of the most interesting racing, especially that year where it rained and they ran in the rain the entire race. That was incredible.
Well, if you could find a way to get Road America and Portland back on the Cup schedule, I think that would be fantastic. Because Road America, I mean, the place is standing room only every time they win. You know, you get almost six-figure digits on fans going, and then you say, all right, bye. I think it should deserve at least a try at a Cup date. I can think of a few tracks that I'd like to see go off, like Indianapolis. I mean, when was the last time that race was quality for 160 laps, right? And so I'd like to see Portland get a try.
Alrighty, boys, we are going to move on to the Cup race, and we get to talk about a whole bunch of fun stuff because we were there. You know, obviously we're always talking about our title sponsor with Wilkerson's Catering, and we have a little ad read that I constructed. It's a little personal touch from me this weekend. We'll talk about it after. I don't have a video or anything fancy. I'm just going to read it out to you guys. But, life throws you some bumps in the road for sure. Like me leaving Darlington with a swollen eye. I sure didn't plan on that. But there is some things that you can plan on, and one can be is Wilkerson's Catering is always going to bring you a fresh meal. They're always on time. The food's outrageously, greatly hot and fresh. The setup's ready, and you don't have to worry about a thing. You just got to call them, have them set up a menu, and you can just chillax. It can be a barbecue. It can be a wedding. It can just be a sporting's event. They do all kinds of different events, and Wilkerson's has you covered. Even with a swollen eye, I'm sure that 100% that Wilkerson Catering will always make sure that everything will run smoothly and are always dependable as they come. And I say that as this week, Austin can credit this that happened to me. I got hit by a piece of either pavement or shrapnel from Tyler Reddick's car out of turn 4, and my eye was fricked. Let's just be honest here. It was bad. Not a black eye, but it was not beautiful, let me tell you. And that's the first time that's ever happened to me in a race. And I looked at Austin, and I was just like, frick, that hurt. No clue. He had no clue that happened till after the race.
Well, man, go ahead.
I was gonna say his eye was bloodshot. Looked like he'd been smoking something strong. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was like looking like Jim Ross over here, you know. So he was struggling.
Well, man, like you had gone. It was after the race, and you had gone to the bathroom. I kind of see like wiping your eyes, and I didn't know a piece of shrapnel or something had hit you. I didn't know if you had just got word your dog died or somebody you loved gone to be with the Lord or whatever. You go to the ask Austin, like, was he crying? Is he all right? Like, what? I'm like, I know Bowman had a bad night, but I didn't think he'd get to him that bad. I'm like, I'm gonna check in on you a little bit. I didn't want to like follow you into the bathroom, as men, but that'd be odd. But like, I was kind of worried out there, man. I was like, I almost kind of felt bad for you. So
yeah, it was so bad. Austin texted me like at 1:55, and he was like, "Yo, bro, are you good?" It's like you look like you were you didn't have a good time. I'm like, well, my eye, man, was literally dying. I had sunscreen in it to begin with, so it was already irritated. And then that happened. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It's the same eye too.
And my man was also glasses during the time too. You talk about unlucky.
Yes. Yes, and I just happened to swap from my sunglasses to my regular glasses because the sun went down. So I'm like, I don't need my sunglasses anymore. If I had those things on, it probably wouldn't even hit me because the frames are a little bit wider.
Just give 2311 another lawsuit. Just go for it.
I think I'd be the least of their worries, man. If I'm being honest with you, they probably just settle me. Oh my goodness. But, that was the most interesting thing that happened to me at the race, because the racing absolutely was not the most interesting I've ever seen at Darlington. And we'll get to talking about that. I'll let Austin start here. I'll let Blake start last 2 times because I know he was able to watch the recaps of stuff a little bit closely. But obviously, we were all there, so we didn't have to watch anything verbatim.
Man, who didn't have issues during this race? I saw a Twitter graphic, just a list of the playoff drivers that had issues that night. Denny had an issue on pit road. Bubba had an issue on pit road. Berry spun out on lap 1 and was 125 laps down. Still got the fastest lap, though. And then Blaney had his spin out there towards the end. All these drivers had issues. Briscoe, even though he was dominant, was having alternator issues in the middle of the race, and the team was unsure if it would fix itself or if it would be a terminal issue. Although the on-track action wasn't super entertaining as far as all the lead changes came from pit road, for the most part, there was a lot of drama that did happen just with not necessarily stuff that you see, but stuff that happened on pit road. Bowman goes down and the freaking hose isn't attached to the air gun. And it's like, for one, what are you doing? 48 team, what are you doing to your driver? What was it? Brad Keselowski lost lug nut and pulled into the 22 box, throws a helmet on the tire man or the gunman for the 22 team, and he puts on a bolt real quick. Just, all sorts of stuff just, on pit road happened. And really, pit road was a deciding factor for a lot of this. And, Briscoe obviously dominated the race, led 309 laps. I believe that's the second most laps led at a Southern 500. I think he was about 10 to 15 laps short of the record. But, we were talking about this after the race. Historically, the guy that leads the most laps at the Southern 500 does not win the race. We saw that last year. Kyle Larson led the majority of the race, dominated the first 2 stages. We all were thinking, this is another Larson show. Well, towards the later part of the stage, he loses the lead, and he does not win the race. Briscoe does. And we saw it, I believe, the year Eric Jones won. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch, they were the 2 that were dominating the race overall. Kyle Busch blows an engine towards the end of the race, and then, Eric Jones is able to hold off Denny Hamlin for the win. So, that did not happen here. Chase Briscoe, that was belt to behind the entire race, dominated all the stages, and Reddick came close. I think if the race had maybe another 10 laps, I think Reddick or Jones would have probably caught him. I was talking to my dad about this weekend. I said it was the craziest thing, just how strong Briscoe was on those good tires. He'd build this huge lead, 4 or 5 second lead, and then towards the end of the run with about 40 laps, 30, 40 laps on these tires, Reddick would begin closing that gap, and as soon as Reddick would catch up, they'd pit again. And then the cycle would restart. Briscoe would get this huge lead, Reddick would run him down, pit again. And then I thought, that last stretch, I was like, if Reddick is going to get him, this is where it's going to be, because this is going to be almost a 50-lap finish at the end of the race. The longest they've gone on these tires all day. And Reddick came so close to getting him, just could not hang on to it and get a good enough run off of the turns to be able to make a pass on him. But, overall, from our perspective, sitting in the stands, it was not the most exciting race. As Blake said so elegantly after the race, that's a good old-fashioned tail whipping right there. That's my take on the race. Lots of drama on pit road and issues with playoff drivers. but overall dominance from the 19 team.
You didn't even mention, obviously, when Hocevar spun out on pit road and hit the 20 car, Christopher Bell, and that screwed his day up pretty badly too. And that's definitely a contender for the title. If you don't believe Christopher Bell's not a contender for the title, obviously he's not had the greatest run here lately. Last few since North Wilkesboro, honestly, it's been kind of a struggle for him. But that team's just waiting to catch fire at this point too. So yeah, it's painful to watch. I'll let Blake go ahead and take over here, and I'll kind of conclude with my thought.
Yeah, anytime you get to go to the race, always fun. Darlington's always got a pretty good atmosphere, and so walking into the track, you just feel that old school vibe, right? It's kind of the only track you kind of get that feeling at. For me, is almost kind of like a Wilkesboro with how old it is, right? And so I thought the racing was okay. I mean, I don't think anybody in their right mind would say it was a good race or even a great race, right? But you still had I'm thankful it made the race at least somewhat tolerable. You did have some, like you said, some pit road woes, and then you also had some beating and banging too, like with Hocevar and Chase, and it's like just them door slamming each other um, right down the straightaway, and you also had a lot of cars too. You couldn't really tell that there was a ton of passing, but overall, as the race went on, you saw people like a John Hunter Nemechek go from 30th to finishing fourth in the race. Somebody like a Eric Jones be able to climb his way up, and so super super good race of attrition, right? Just who can make the least amount of mistakes and who can keep their head in it. And honestly, Briscoe, I mean, shout out to his pit crew too. Like, I think every single pit stop was under 10 seconds. And especially at Darlington, to where you're in those green flag cycles, like even 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 of a second means a lot on track. And so it was just the perfect night for Briscoe. I kind of thought going in, I'm like, man, if he can win in a Stewart-Haas car, I almost wonder what he could do with a Gibbs car, and boy, did he show his potential. um, and so, fun weekend with friends. I think I'd much rather uh, be at a track that the racing is kind of par than watching a par race on TV. It's always better being in the stand. So, thanks for the opportunity, but definitely wasn't the best thing you ever saw. The finish was pretty interesting, especially that last 48, 50 lap run on those tires. Like you said, Austin was going to be the longest they had gone on the tires. Briscoe, you could tell his long run speed was starting to fade, and Reddick's was turning up the heat, but Reddick just pushed it a little too far. If he wouldn't have gotten into the wall, I think, and especially with the fact that Briscoe did, I think Reddick, he would have been at least able to door slam him a little bit on that in that last corner. Then, if that happened, I think if you're going to be anybody in that scenario, it's going to be Eric Jones, right? Just to take him 3 wide and see, and then hope for the best. So, I think you had a really good ending to it, but also too, I mean, think you got to appreciate the greatness you saw too. I mean, does it make for a fantastic race? No, but man, that it was good that Briscoe capitalized on his win last year at the 500, right? But this year is like, all right, he ain't playing games. Like, it was like that feel good Cinderella story a little bit last year. He's like, he was able to play off he was able to win his way in. Because Briscoe with the Stewart-Haas car, like, he wasn't a tender for the championship.
It was greatness, and you're right. This 19 team, ain't playing around. They're giving Briscoe the same setups that Martin Truex had for these tracks. And, you hear Briscoe talk in these interviews, like the difference between the 14 and the 19. He was like, I can send it into a corner and it sticks. He's like, that's the difference between, this car and the one I ran last year. I throw it in a corner, it sticks, and I'm able to do so much more with the car. And we saw that this weekend. He almost messed it up. We were sitting right there in turn 4, and he ate that wall really good, rubbed a good section of it. And that I saw Blake get a little fired up there and have me and Cole dial laughing. We thought, that was going to be Reddick's moment, but man, they were fighting that car that last 20 laps or so. It was a handful for them. Turns 3 and 4 seemed to be the problem child. I didn't see a ton of issues at the guys in 1 and 2, but when they were coming off of 3 and 4, man, they were fighting that car. But yeah, heck of a performance by Briscoe. I wanted to say heck of a performance by Toyota in general. It was a great day to drive a Toyota because all of them basically finished in the top 10, except for Riley Herbst, and Bubba. But we did finish in the top 10. You had Briscoe, you had Jones, you had John Hunter, you had Reddick, you had Hamlin, you had Bubba, all these Toyota cars finishing in the top 10. And props to Hamlin, too, for getting back into the top 10 after royally screwing up his position with what happened to him on pit road, getting back in the top 10 and salvaging his day. But for some guys, the playoff cut line is looming, especially for my driver, Joey. He did not have a good day in the 22. But yeah.
I wanted to mention, obviously, Austin mentioned Hamlin. Hamlin had the penalty on the pit road. He had a really slow pit stop, and he came out just with Byron. And it was fun to watch his progression up the field compared to Byron. Byron was ahead of him for 3/4 of that progression. As the race got towards the later elements, that's when Hamlin started to make his passes. So that kind of shows like you're young and your veteran driver, your young guy is trying to use up whatever he can. And then when it gets to that later portion of the run, and that's when Hamlin was able to kind of finesse his passes and make his progression back up into the top 10, where Byron actually faded back. Hendrick had a horrific day universally, which Darlington, obviously Byron did really good in the spring, and Larson did really good in the past, but it's not one of those racetracks where I always consider like Hendrick to be, oh yeah, they're going to be competitive, they're going to have a shot, It's not one of those racetracks. Toyota's usually historically really good here. JGR, Legacy, man, I'm telling you, Legacy's going to win a race for the end of this year. It's going to happen. Obviously, it's not going to give them a playoff spot, but they've been too close to not get one, especially at races like these 1.5 miles. They've been fantastic there. And then have a racing racetrack like Darlington. It's been said numerous times by so many individuals. If you can get a top 5 or a top 3 podium finish at Darlington, you are a truly good racer because it equalizes the equipment a lot. That's why you have someone like Chase Briscoe that was able to win last year. Eric Jones was able to win the Legacy car. Obviously, we talked about that last week. That's one of Austin's favorite races he's ever been to. But it's a great equalizer. But it also, you have people like, a Ty Gibbs, for instance. And I hate to just bash him all the time here, but we talk about how strong Toyota is, and we're expecting Ty Gibbs to break through sometime this season. And when it comes to these racetracks, you don't ever see him in the hunt. It's very rare. And I don't know, man. It's crazy to see when you see Bale obviously had the issue, but before that, he was running in the top 10, top 15. He was competitive. Hamlin obviously had to go all the way up the field to get into the top 10. It's just a great racetrack for him. And if you're picking next year for a Darlington in the fall, you really have to be thinking Team Toyota all the way at this point. Especially not a Penske or a Hendrick driver. You wouldn't be looking at them because they've been not the greatest here in the last little bit in the fall. I'll get to the mention of the 1 point here in a second. Austin did mention that the Gluck poll, obviously, it was a 61%. Which was a yes, 31 or 39% no, which is 16% higher than spring, but that doesn't tell the whole story here. It ranks 16th out of the 17 total Darlington races ever ran there at the racetrack in this pole era. Before this season, Darlington never had one below 70%, and that's happened both times. So the spring race was the Byron flexing his muscles, kind of in a similar fashion, a 45%. He didn't win that race, though. Two races that tell kind of similar stories, just a little bit of a different ending. But yeah, it's tough, man. You go to this racetrack and you have so much anticipation and hype, especially after last year, seeing how close of a finish it was. And I think Blake kind of summarized it really well when he said that if Reddick didn't hit the wall with about 18 to go, I think it's when he hit the wall. You seen how close he was on the last lap. He would have passed him probably no problem, or you would have had Eric Jones at least fighting for that top spot as well. I think that it's and even if you added 5 laps at the end of that race, Briscoe historically had better launch off new tires, and as his equipment went away, Dick and Eric Jones and other cars will start gaining a little bit on that humongous gap that he would get on those restarts. He would just check out. And there's a guy that was kind of good at Darlington that also drove that 19 car. His name was Martin Truex. He won a couple of Darlington races, so it's safe to say that 19 legacy is pretty good in Chase Briscoe's hands for next year for the fall race. I would say anybody that's betting money would probably consider him a odds favorite for next year. But yeah, Blake, do you think that 1 point, obviously it's not a major amount of points, it's just 1 point, but do you think that should be viable for teams to come back out that are 60, 70 laps down and just get 1 point? Where that 1 point could be the difference, when we looked at situations like Larson one year? What do you
Yeah.
think?
I mean, it definitely adds another piece to the puzzle, right? And so, like, say Berry in some way or another makes it by 1 point, you can come back to this race and say, hey, this is why, right? But also, too, like, I don't think this is the only time this year this has happened. Like, I think after Larson got plow drived at Mexico City, right? I think he was able to come back out, and we all know how good SVG was. You would think he had the fastest lap, but it was actually Larson at Mexico City, and potential that it could have happened at even other more times, right? And so I don't know. I mean, because that with all the damage that some of these cars have, I think in some ways you can make it faster because you could probably manipulate the air better for your car. And so I think it's going to be kind of what your philosophy is. It's going to be how you answer this, right? Because from a strategic standpoint, if you want storylines that could matter, not saying that it will, but storylines that could matter, I mean, it does give teams some incentive to get back onto the track, which I like personally. I think there probably should be a cutoff point, like, hey, look, if you're 118 laps down, you probably shouldn't be getting the fastest lap award. And look, I love Josh Berry. I'm a fan of his, but I'm a fan of Larson's too. But I think it is a stretch, right? I think it's almost like a little bit of a miniature version of, say, somebody like a Cole Custer wins at Daytona and makes the playoffs, right? It's like, should that happen? Now, if you come back and you're 1 or 2 laps down, I don't think I have a big problem with it, but still, it's like if you're 118 laps down, I think you got to draw the line somewhere.
For sure. Austin, you kind of in the same element there for this 1 point that you get for coming back on the track if you have a very damaged vehicle like Josh Berry did that's over 50, 60 laps. I can't even remember how many laps down he was, and he gets that 1 point. What do you think about that as a racing fan?
I mean, maybe I'm just used to it when it comes to Formula One. Watching Formula One, I mean, you'll have guys that have no shot at winning the race, pit with 3 laps to go, get fresh tires, and try to get that fastest lap because that's a point for them. And in F1, every point you can get means more money for you and your team. I don't blame Josh Berry a bit. He knows going into this, he needs all the help he can get to get those points. He's in the playoffs. Now, he is one of those that is clearly in the red on the cut line for the next round, why not give up everything you can get and see what you can do? So I don't really have that much of an issue with it. I mean, if you're going to run laps and be laps down, might as well do something, right?
I don't have an issue with it being laps down, but when it's like 60, 70 laps down, you're coming with a wrecked race car out of the garage, and you're, like Blake said, you can manipulate stuff where you might run a little bit faster laps, and obviously they're not going to tech that car because it's all the way in the back. What's the point of teching a car like that? I think it's a little bit different than just getting some fresh rubbers and trying to run, fastest lap. This is my perspective on it. It's just a little bit of a different scenario, I guess.
If there's more ways to get points, like I like that. I mean, personally, I wish they'd bring back if you lead a lap, that's points. I mean, I kind of like that, but yeah, it does seem like a stretch.
I think it's just one of those things where everybody's going to disagree at certain points, and NASCAR's going to do what NASCAR's going to do because that's what they are.
I mean, if you're having a bad day, your day's already toast. Why not try to milk all you can out of it? And as the rule says, the rule doesn't have any stipulations on who can have the fastest lap. Why not try to put something out there and get at least something out of the day, that was scrapped from the very beginning.
I agree for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we're being perfectly honest here, Berry had a very good chance to have a good day. He's historically really good at that racetrack. Obviously, Penske didn't do really well, but I think he could have had a shot to at least had a good day and be there at the end. Anybody that qualifies that well at Darlington usually has a pretty good shot. So
basically, anybody who didn't have a Toyota was not doing well that day. So
yeah, it seemed like it for sure. Absolutely. Alrighty, so we're going to move on and we're going to prepare you guys for the weekend. Obviously, trucks are not running. They will be running at Bristol next week. Obviously, this week we have the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series at Gateway, St. Louis. The Xfinity race is called the No Way 200. Everything for the contractors. Sauced by Blue Hawks. Very, very fancy name. I'm telling you, man, they're getting absurd with these names. No cars will miss this race, and we got a couple of interesting names here. 07 of Nick Lentz. The 11 of Daniel Hemrick will be making a Xfinity start. The 14 of Garrett Smithley. There's the Lizard Guy. Number 17 of Corey Day, Eric Almirola. And the 19, 32 of Jordan Anderson. LeVar Scott making a start in that 45 car. He's been really fantastic in the ARCA series this year. 53 of Joey Gase, 70 of Thomas Unazita, number 76 of Cole Raz, and the number 91 of Matt Mills. So a whole bunch of names that you don't necessarily hear week in to week out. And then the Cup race, man, we pretty much just got the standard guys. We have the open drivers like a Reddick and, Noah G, Bubba, but they're really not open drivers. We're going to throw it to Austin, the Summonator, to talk to us about St. Louis.
Yep, we are looking at St. Louis. I've actually flown over this track. Man, Gateway or Worldwide Tech, however you want to pronounce it. It's right on the border between Madison, Illinois and St. Louis. So, kind of a right on that border. It's in Illinois, but everybody says it's in St. Louis. But it is a asphalt, not concrete, oval. It is egg-shaped to a degree, so it has a unique layout. It is 1.25 miles long, so 1.25 miles. There are 4 corners. Turns 1 and 2 are banked at 11 degrees, and turns 3 and 4 are banked at 9 degrees. So a little flatter, and has a good capacity. Around 78,000 fans can fit in this track. So that is what Gateway is looking like. And I guess I'm also covering a bit of the historian aspect of it for Kent, since he's not here today. But Gateway has a unique spot in NASCAR history. It opened in 1997 as Gateway International Raceway, and it was designed with an egg-shaped oval similar in concept to Darlington, giving it that tricky kind of balance between handling and horsepower. The NASCAR Xfinity Series, or what was known as the Busch Series, was actually the first national series to race here in 1997, with Elliott Sadler winning the inaugural event. The track hosted Xfinity until 2010 and then returned. This is the first time Xfinity is returning to Gateway after a 15-year hiatus. The Truck Series has been a fixture here and a regular fixture here since 1998, often producing some wild finishes. Ross Chastain's hard-fought win in 2019 and John Hunter Nemechek's victory in 2022. The Cup Series didn't arrive until 2022, making it one of the newer tracks on the calendar. Logano took the first Cup win there, beating Kyle Busch in an overtime restart. Last year, Blaney was the favorite to win the race until he ran out of gas towards the end of the race. This car ain't got no gas in it. And then Cindric was there to steal the victory away at the last minute. Ownership has changed hands too. This track actually closed briefly in 2010, but was revived in 2011 by a local businessman named Curtis Francois, and his partnership with Worldwide Technology, which is a St. Louis tech giant, secured this track's future, and it's bringing NASCAR back towards the Midwest. Worldwide Tech also hosts IndyCar, it hosts ARCA, and it also on their facility host drag racing as well. So it is one of the most versatile motorsports facilities in the U.S. And so this weekend, we get to enjoy Xfinity being back on this track for the first time in over 15 years, which is cause for celebration because I think, honestly, with how Xfinity has been running this year, has the potential to be a really exciting race. None of these drivers really have any experience in these cars on this track. So it's going to be a new kind of adventure for them. And then, just seeing the Cup Series, the racing hasn't been terrible. It's not been the best, but we've had some pretty cool storylines. Joey winning the first race back there, Kyle Busch breaking one of his streaks and getting his first win with RCR there. And then, then last year, the kind of exciting finish there at the end with Blaney running out of gas, and then Cindric being there to swoop in and get the victory. So we'll see how things go this year. But at this time, I'm going to hand it off to our tire expert, Blake, and let us know. It gonna rain?
Doesn't. Yeah, so with the tires this weekend, they are bringing the Iowa set of tires that they race. But something that's interesting though, they put the Iowa tires on for the short track package, and
He just disappeared.
hey, you got me now.
Unfortunately.
All right, so for Iowa this weekend, they are not Iowa. Put this on the bloopers. I'm so out of it here. All right. For Gateway this weekend, they are actually running the Iowa set of tires. Kind of interesting because Iowa, with that being a short track, you would think they'd put a tire more conducive for a short track there, obviously. But with Gateway, Goodyear's got the philosophy that they're trying to have an intermediate feel in the tires, but they're using a short track tire to do that. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But overall, the drivers will have 9 sets of tires for the Cup race, and 1 set to qualify on and 1 set to practice on. Should be a plenty for that. And then for the Xfinity Series, it's actually the same Phoenix tire that they had back in the spring. They'll have 3 sets to run on for the race, 1 qualifying and 2 practice. So you look at the Iowa tire, it wasn't, like I always going to try to be honest, this KN Iowa tire wasn't fantastic. But hopefully that could translate over to a good tire for Gateway. So kind of interesting the varying kind of philosophies that Goodyear's trying to go with. But they're trying to make the racing better on what they can do on their end. But that's pretty much all I got for Gateway this weekend on the tires.
Good job, buddy. No problems with that. That was purely 100% first take, no problem.
Flawless.
Professional at this point. Can't really talk much about the fan experience with this place. Obviously, not been there, being in the Midwest, but seems like an interesting place to go for a race. It's got that egg shape, as Mr. Austin's mentioned before. It's got a very distinct shape, so it runs a little bit differently than your standard oval tracks. So just it'd be more interesting trying to follow different drivers at this racetrack. Obviously, we know the Penske guys are going to be pretty strong here. They've been right out of the gate, but it's going to be interesting to see how these teams like a JGR and a Hendrick try to close the gap this year and see if they can make any developments. And honestly, Gateway's kind of similar to Phoenix in a couple of ways. Hendrick tried to put a lot of resources into that being where it's going to be the championship race this year. So we will go ahead and just move on to our spicy take segment. And Austin, I know that you have Kent's spicy take, and he missed his by a mile. If you guys remember, Kent's spicy take last week had about 5 different constraints attached to it, and he didn't hit any of them. Just like his picks most of the time, he didn't hit a dang thing. So I'm kidding. I love you, Kent. I know you don't listen this far into the podcast, anyways.
Dang.
Man, Kent's catching strays today. Goodness. So his hot take is one that is not really for this week, but it stretches over the rest of the season.
What?
But his is that Zillich will win at least 4 more races this season.
So he's trying to say he's going to be close to the Kyle Busch record for Xfinity / Busch / Nationwide / Grand National Series / O'Reilly Series / insert whatever sponsor you want to here series. I don't believe anybody of us hit one. I know I didn't hit mine. I said Sawalch was going to win. Came in second place. Austin came in, I think, and said that Quapple was going to win. And he was the one that probably should have won, technically, if you're counting just making the corner the right way. I'm pretty sure Blake said LaJoy was going to win the Darlington race, and he did not win the Darlington race. So we all missed pretty badly. I'll go ahead and say I say a legacy car wins this weekend. I say they eliminate Penske's dominance, and I say John Hunter Nemechek wins. And we will be celebrating a legacy win once again. It's been a little while since that's happened. So that would be great progression for that organization. Alrighty, Austin. Take it away, buddy. What do you think?
I say that Goodyear's tire gamble this week pays off, and that it will be tires will play a big factor in the outcome of the race.
What does tire experts say about this spicy take? Is it pretty spicy?
Based on how this ran at Iowa, that is very spicy.
Yeah, when you said Iowa tire, I was like, oh, no.
All right, next.
Yeah. Let's just tell them that's not going to be a good race. We'll tell them that's not going to be a good race. Iowa tire. Oh my goodness. All right, Blake, what's your spicy take for the week?
Or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, like Kent's doing.
For the next decade. I mean, go ahead.
You want to go ahead and predict the next 10 championship winners while you're at it? Just go for it.
Cletus is your Cup champion in 2031. You know what? I'm going to say Gateway will get a 92% good race on the good race poll. I think I'll say that.
Is that better than any race we've had this year?
Michigan was high up there. What percentage did you say, Mr. Balaco?
92.
Yeah, so it would be second on the list because Michigan got a 92.2, which is just insane because I think the Charlotte race should be way higher than a 90.2. But what do I know?
I'll switch it. I'll say this will be the highest race this year. I'll say it gets at least a 92.3.
Okay.
If it is, man, I'm afraid for the rest of the season. If that's going to be the best race of the year, but
Gateway,
yay!
Hey, I was close to my Richmond spicy take.
You were, yeah. I think that's why you're going with this because you know you ain't going to hit anything else, so you might as well just do the percentages. Alrighty, well, we are going to move on to our Pick'em series, and I'm going to throw it to the Austin Nader, and we will conclude with that. So go ahead and take it away, my friend.
All right, this is the Pick'em series brought to you by the Glowing Glove Company. So, looking at the truck series, we will not pick for the trucks this week because they are off, but I picked up the dub this week in the truck series with Heim winning the race. Blake came in second with Hemrick, Kent came in third with Riggs, and then Cole came in last with Honeycutt. And so, looking at our points, there's a two-way tie for the lead. Kent and Blake are tied at 50. I am third with 49, and Cole rounds out the bottom with 41. I'm sorry, Cole. Looking at the Xfinity Series, which we will pick this week, Cole came in first with Zilisch taking the win at Portland. Blake came in second with Jesse Love. We love Jesse Love. I came in third with Sam Mayer, and then Kent came in last with Sammy Smith. I for a second thought I came in last this past week, and then I kept scrolling, and then I saw the number 8. So that was a plus to here. But Kent, I have his pick. He is going to roll with Connor Zilisch this weekend at Gateway. I am up next, and I cannot pick SVG, Hill, or Mayer. And I think see, this is a hard track to pick for, right? Because Xfinity hasn't been here in 15 years. So the guy that I'm basing this off of guys that do well at New Hampshire and guys that do well at Phoenix, because those are the two most similar tracks to what we're kind of looking at here with Gateway. I am going to go with Sammy Smith this weekend, and we'll see how that goes for him. Next up is Balake. Balake, you cannot pick Zilisch, Almirola, or Love.
Give me, man, I almost hate to do it with Bristol being next week, but
Don't do it.
you know what? Give me Austin Hill. I think if you can have Allgaier for Bristol.
All right. Cole, my man, you cannot pick McDowell, Gray, or Zilisch. Who are you rolling with?
I did sign language. I went.
Alligator.
Oh, you're going Gate?
Yeah.
You're going Allgaier?
Yeah, for last place at a track that I would think a veteran driver would do really good. If he picked Allgaier, I was probably going to pick Eric Almirola.
I'm surprised Almirola was still on the board. I thought about picking him, but I would rather go with Sammy Smith. Looking at the points, Blake has taken the lead with 62 points. Kent second with 60, and then Cole and I are tied for last at 59 points. So we are all right there in contention as we get ready to move into the playoffs for the Xfinity Series. Looking at the Cup Series, Blake ran away with this one this week by sweeping both stages and winning the race, with Chase Briscoe earning him a total of 6 points this weekend. Kent came in second with Reddick. Cole, I came in third with Hamlin, and then Cole came in last with Byron. So, Cole, my friend, going into this weekend, who are you looking at?
Can you remind me of the 3 that I can't
Oh,
pick
yes,
as well?
sorry. You cannot pick Hamlin, John Hunter, or Byron.
I mean, it's hard not to say Logano. I know Blaney did really good here last year, but Logano won the first race here, veteran presence. He ran really good last year as well. Didn't win, obviously, but he was in the running. I probably will just say him out of that, being Penske and a veteran prowess, but we all know that qualifying and practice takes precedent of pretty much anybody that we picked before.
Except for Richmond and Darlington.
Yeah, true that.
Savar, they interviewed Hocevar after qualifying. He's like, He's like, it's just like Richmond. He said practice didn't mean a thing compared to actual qualifying. So I pick next. I cannot pick Priest, Bowman, or Hamlin, and I'm looking at Blaney. I feel like this could be a redemption day for Blaney. He came oh so close last year to winning. Fell just short, a few laps short of fuel. Fell short, lost the race. Feel like this could be a redemption. This is also Penske territory. Penske has dominated here as of late. So I'm looking at Blaney. So, I would still get him back in time for Talladega. So that is who I am looking at. Kent, what's remaining of his first choice was Logano. His second choice was Blaney. His third choice is Cindric. So he is looking at Austin Cindric for Gateway this weekend. That's who remains. I mean, yeah, Cindric ran really well there last year. He was running second a lot there towards the end, but just off of how Cindric has performed for the majority of the year, yeah, that's an L take for Kent. And when I read the point standings out to you, it'll make a lot of sense why. It's okay. He doesn't listen to this far of the podcast anyway, so he will have Cindric. Blake, my friend, you pick last. You cannot pick Bell, Busch, or Briscoe. Who are you considering going into this weekend?
I mean, I'd say probably the best pick available would be Hamlin, right? But you've also got the Bristol factor coming up. But Hamlin's been on a little bit of a low streak. I think I'll be interested to see if he can rebound after a few kind of tough weeks, but then rebounded at Darlington, obviously, so maybe a little momentum's coming back. But I might consider Hamlin. I think a lot of the obvious picks will probably be taken by the time P4 rolls around, right? So we'll see, but I'd say maybe Hamlin might be a decent pick.
So looking at the Vegas odds for this weekend, just to give you the top 5 favorites, believe it or not, Christopher Bell is actually the highest favored driver going into this weekend. A lot of people would say that he is due for a good day. I don't know if I would risk a pick on him, especially with Loudon coming up in a couple of weeks. We know that he is really good there. Also, can't rule out Logano for New Hampshire either. This is a home track for Logano. New Hampshire is a home track for Logano, so that could be something for him. Next up is Ryan Blaney, his second highly favored, obviously because of his dominance here last year. Denny Hamlin, just because of the season he's had. Chase Briscoe is next, of course, just him qualifying. He has a lot of poles this year. Larson is fourth on the list, and then last, the fifth is Logano. So basically, Larson, Logano, the 3 Toyotas, and Blaney. So it'll be interesting to see how practice shapes out. I'm interested to see if we'll actually get a race where the practice correlates to qualifying. That would be really nice, for picking, because that's been tough the last couple of weeks. Looking at our point standings, Blake has closed a little bit of the gap. Kent is in last with 69 points. Blake and Cole are tied at 72 for second and third place. And then I am in the lead with 82 points. Been on a little bit of a slump the last couple of weeks, but thankfully, thanks to William Byron, I did not finish last this week. But we have 9 races remaining in the season. All of our championship picks are still alive at the moment. I would say Blake's is probably the most at risk, being Reddick, although he did make up some good ground this past weekend at Darlington. He was -1 coming into the night and finished at +35, I believe. So, good day for him. And that is all we have for the Pick'em series. And we'll pick next week for all 3 series at good old Bristol for the fall race, which I believe y'all two will be attending.
Be there for the night race and I believe the ARCA race. I believe that's the plan, unless anything's changed. Hopefully not a Larson-dominated 500-lap special there. Might see maybe 10 laps of somebody else leading would be nice. But, we'll see what happens. But we're looking forward to that, and we hope you guys enjoy Gateway. And, yeah, that's basically it. Anything else you guys would like to say before we conclude this wonderful episode 31?
Nope. Everybody have a good week and have fun.
Enjoy the weekend. Go Dogs.
And make sure to check us out on all the social medias at 4WidePod, and that's FOURWIDEPOD. So that is us. We're on all the socials there. We've been posting some really good stuff here lately. We will talk to you guys next week when we talk about how Austin Dillon wins the race and surprises everybody. See you later. Bye.